Okay, now in this lesson what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain to you in a nutshell how CSS works. Okay, so first of all, a brief bit of history. Before CSS, what we have is if you want to format the way your text and images and content looked, what we have is we have your HTML pages. So here I have 3 HTML pages. So before CSS, what we would do is you would use HTML to define how the text would look, or how the image would look, or what thickness the borders are, and that kind of stuff. And then you repeat that. If this was the HTML in green here, you would wrap around it. You would put HTML tags around to say, well, I want this text to be this size and this font. And you have to repeat it on this file and repeat it on this file. So how it might look is something like this. Now, like I said, this is the old way of doing it, and you can still do it this way if you want to. So in this case, what I'm doing is this is the text. This is my content. The color will be sienna, and block quote means I'm going to indent it by 1 tab. So if you look in design view, this is what it looks like. My content is formatted to this color, indented by 1 tab. And again, the HTML to make that happen is right here. The problem with this system is that it works fine if you have 2 or 3 pages, but what if you have 10,000 pages? Then you have to repeat that coding 10,000 times, and the worst part is that if you want to change your if you wanted to do this, change your color from sienna to red, okay, you'd have to, in the old ways, you have to open up 10,000 different pages and make 10,000 edits to change sienna to red. And you can see that is just simply not an effective way of working. Alright. Now, continue on a little bit further up the line. Okay, so fast forwarding just a little bit, what we see a little bit after that is we see the CSS, what you see here in pink, being integrated into the HTML itself. Okay, kind of as a value to an attribute. I know you probably don't understand what I'm saying, but here's what it looks like in real life. So I have down here, okay, I have my HTML tags, the paragraph tag and the paragraph end tag, and I have an attribute called style, and the value of that is the CSS. So you see here that I'm changing the color to sienna, and the margin, the left margin, I'm going to push it forward by 41 pixels. So if you look at that design, okay, I'm going to put this is paragraph 2, so we know which one's which design. Alright, so you compare the old way of just using plain old HTML to define style, and the new way is that the style is defined using CSS, but the CSS is embedded inside of HTML. Okay, so this is also a problem, because if we want to duplicate that, then we need to duplicate that, copy it to this file, and copy it to this file as well. Another problem is if we have another paragraph tag, and go, this is another graph. Alright, now the new paragraph is not going to have that formatting, and in order for me to have that formatting, what I need to do is I need to copy this entire line over to here, okay, and then it's gonna duplicate the formatting. So again, we're one step forward, but we're still not really where we want to be. Okay, so let's fast forward just a little bit more. Now what we're going to do in this case here is basically we went from here. Alright. Sorry. So what we had is, in the previous one, we had the CSS inside of the HTML line itself. Now what we want to do is we want to take the CSS, and we're going to put the CSS at the very top of the page, and it's going to automatically apply to the HTML coding. So what that looks like is this. Alright, so we've taken the CSS, alright, and we've put it at the top of the page in the head, between the head section. So this is the start of my CSS, the end of my CSS. In this case, what I'm doing is that I'm defining style for all paragraphs, all paragraph tags, okay, within this document, okay, within this file here only, and that's it, okay. But what that allows me to do is it allows me, for example, paragraph. This is yet another paragraph, and when I go to design view, you notice that my new content is automatically formatted to what I defined up here, okay. And the neat thing about this is I can have as many paragraphs as I want, okay. This is yet another paragraph. Alright, and I go to my design view, okay, and both of my new paragraphs are formatted the same, even though I've done basically nothing except use the paragraph tag. Why is that? Because the styling is defined up here. So if I were to change this to red, okay, go to design view, and you see here that both my paragraphs were changed to red. So what I've done here is I changed a value in the common CSS file, and that changed both my paragraphs. Now this is a good solution, alright, but still not ideal in that the CSS defined at the top of the page only applies to the HTML inside of this file. So this CSS that I define up here only applies to this CSS, to these paragraph tags inside of my HTML file. So what we need, okay, is we need an even better way of doing it. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to take the CSS out of this document, and we want to create a blank CSS file. All right, it's going to look something like this. So this is my blank CSS file, and what I want to do here is I want to take the CSS out of this HTML file. Oops. Sorry, let me back up 2 seconds here. What I want to do is I want to take the CSS out of this HTML file, and I want to move it into a separate style sheet. And then what I want to do is I want to link each one of my documents, each one of HTML documents, to this style sheet, and it's going to look something like. So what happens is I've taken the CSS coding, I put it into its own style sheet, style.css file. Each one of my HTML files is looking into this style.css to define what the text is going to look like, what size the font is, how the indentation works, the size of the border, thickness of the border, the color of the border, the color of the background, the background picture, if there's a border around the image and how thick is it, and all that kind of stuff. That way my HTML pages are only responsible for displaying the content, and my CSS page defines absolutely everything else to do with style and looks. So what that looks like is in real life it looks like this. Alright, so if you look at my the main page of DW, this is the end result. Okay, so we're not there quite yet, but we've linked the template, okay, to this style.css, which is right here. So the template looks into style.css, and in here it defines all the positions, the size of the text boxes or divs, the font sizes, the font style, all right, and what have you. And because and if you just look at any of these web pages, okay, if you look somewhere in the head section, here it is. Each one of these pages is also linked to the style sheet. Okay, so that's basically what this looks like in real life. And if you look at this diagram, you can kind of see very easily that if I change something here, okay, if I were to change a little bit of a style here, because each one of these HTML pages looks into this one to for the styling and looks. One little change here would automatically apply to all these web pages without me having to make a change to save a template. Okay, so I want to end off by I want to show you a couple of resources that you can use to learn more about CSS. Extremely powerful tool. I recommend going to w3schools.com, learn CSS. Tons of awesome tutorials here with a little quiz and all that. Just a great way to learn, a hands-on way to learn CSS. And when you've done that, A neat little website is one called csszengarden.com, and I'm not even going to describe it. Just go try it. It's kind of fun, actually.